So is the government shutting down? Well, that depends on Donald Trump and the Republicans. They control the White House, they control the House, they control the Senate. It's really up to them. Now, the risk increased greatly when Republicans decided to send a partisan continuing resolution to the Senate that lacked any Democratic support. So what is a continuing resolution, or CR? Let me try to explain. So government funding runs out on Friday at midnight, and in a normal world, what would happen is Democrats and Republicans would pass what's called a clean continuing resolution, a clean CR. That would essentially put the government on autopilot with all of the same funding levels that we had for the last several months, for the next several months, until something can be worked out. But that's not what happened here. Here, Republicans passed a partisan resolution that changed all kinds of funding levels and also stripped Congress of the ability to overturn the Trump tariffs that are wrecking our economy. So that passed on a narrow 2-vote margin in the House, and now it's here in the Senate, and it doesn't have the votes. So this particular continuing resolution would last for 6 months, and it gives Donald Trump 6 months to continue wrecking the government, continue cutting off funding, continue closing Social Security offices, continuing layoff of veterans and the layoff of firefighters. Essentially gives him another half year to continue all the destructive actions he's taking now. That's not going to fly. What we should do is something short term that will allow members of Congress to agree on setting regular funding levels for every part of the government and to insist that they be observed by the president, not that we continue to have these illegal impoundments of money. So here's what's going to happen next. On Friday morning, there's going to be something called a cloture motion. That is the vote that requires 60 votes in the Senate to pass out of 100. That means basically, are we willing to close the process so we can go to the merits? And the merits will be, in the first instance, this not clean but very dirty 6-month CR that has all of these other provisions that pluses up defense spending, that cuts spending for everything else, and that also waives Congress's ability to stop these destructive tariffs. So there'll be cloture vote, 60 votes. Right now, that vote fails. Leader Schumer took to the Senate floor to say that vote does not have the votes needed to pass. So what happens after that? Well, what I'm advocating, what others are advocating in the Democratic Senate caucus is, let's take up a truly clean bill to keep the government funded for the next month until the appropriators can get together on a bipartisan basis and actually set the appropriate funding levels for the rest of the year. Now, why does that matter? Why is it so destructive to have a continuing resolution that puts the government on autopilot? Things change, conditions changed. To give you one example, we had terrible fires in LA. We need to make sure that a government funding bill includes funding for relief for the victims of those fires. We want to make sure that FEMA has more funding to deal not just with these terrible fires in LA, but the increased storms in other parts of the country. If we put the government on autopilot, it means we can't adjust for changing conditions, changing climate, changing circumstances. So that's why even using a CR for anything is a bad practice. Let's not elongate it, make it a whole half year, particularly when they're doing such damage with government, the Doge brothers and others. So here's what I hope will happen. First of all, the vote comes up on Friday morning to invoke cloture. If that fails, we should immediately bring a truly bipartisan resolution to the floor. We have proposed one that would last 28 days. It would give members of Congress in both parties the time they need to get to the bargaining table and agree on the funding for the rest of the year. How much we devote to fire resilience and recovery from fires, how much we devote to Social Security and Medicare and other vital programs to make sure they remain healthy and strong, how much we devote to veterans and the VA. That's what should happen. That's what should happen. Now, will it happen? It really depends on Donald Trump and the Republicans. Do they want to shut down their government? They're acting like they do. They should have known when they put all their eggs in this partisan basket that they were flirting with disaster. And make no mistake, a government shutdown would be disastrous. I don't want to see that happen. But Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and their minions may want this to happen because they've been shutting down the government already. They've just been doing it in pieces. So it will depend on them. The buck stops with them. They're controlling everything right now. I have to hope they use that power in terms of this shutdown responsively and prevent a shutdown, but right now, it's not looking encouraging. So what happens if the government shuts down? Well, the government funding runs out at midnight on Friday. As we're going into a weekend, you may not feel the effects right away, but very soon, tragically, the whole country will feel the effects. If you were planning a trip to a national park, that park may be closed. If you were planning something else at the VA, that might be closed. Government services won't be available. Now, there will be some federal workers still working. They will be deemed essential workers. They may not get paid while they're working, but they'll be required to work. We're going to want to make sure, of course, you've got air traffic controllers and other essential services. Nonetheless, the whole country will be severely impacted. It will be another body blow to the economy. And you might ask, why on earth would Donald Trump and Elon and their buddies risk adding further distress to the economy, another shock to the system of the economy? And I guess the short answer is they don't appear to care. They don't appear to care. What they may do is shut the whole thing down. They have the power to do that by being intransigent, and then try to reopen only the pieces of the government that they like. So maybe they take up a bill to reopen only this part of the government or only that part of the government. They have taken an arsonist's view to all the services that government offers. They want to burn it down. So maybe this is what they want, but I think I've been through shutdowns in the past. This would be a terrible mistake for Republicans to make if they go this route, and I hope they see some sense. So just to recap, over the last 2 months, we've seen Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and their minions shutting down different parts of the government, laying people off, closing whole departments, losing litigation, but nevertheless, piece by piece by piece, trying to dismember government services, and all to fund a tax cut for really rich people and corporations. What's going to happen on Friday is unclear, but they may have decided they want to shut the government down. It certainly looks that way from the very partisan bill that they sent over to the Senate, a bill that would essentially give them 6 more months to continue what they're doing. That is, dismantling any kind of services, raiding the Treasury, self-dealing with their contracts, promoting Teslas on the White House lawn, and stiffing the American people. Also, they can use that money for a tax cut. So they've been shutting it down in pieces, and come Friday, they may decide to shut the whole thing down.